Is that reasonable for someone traveling on a plane who got their seat after paying for it, going through security, waiting at the gate check, scanning their ticket at the gate check agent, putting their bag in the overhead compartment, and sitting down and buckling their seatbelt? Okay, everybody, listen up. I'm not wearing my hat today, because this is a different kind of law video. I normally wear the hats because I have very little respect for unnecessary formality. But the hats are also silly, and today's topic is not silly. Today's topic was not on my planned list of things to talk to you about. The overall law topic we could call qualified immunity. But earlier today, Twitter blew up with a man being removed from a United Airlines flight, seemingly against his will, and with what I would call fairly extreme force. And this was enough that I wanted to maybe answer some questions about what is going on here and why these people do these things. And then I wanted to ask you some questions and see what your response was. So let's take a moment and look at the video. I'm going to show you, these are posts from Twitter, so I'm hoping that no one's going to claim any copyright on these. If they do, I'll deal with it. But this is for an educational purpose and for commentary and criticism, however, how copyright works and how these videos go. So I'll take my chances. So we'll show you a couple of these videos. The story behind this is that allegedly, this is all from what I'm trying to parse from the internet in fairly real time, allegedly the flight was overbooked, but somehow passengers managed to be on the plane already. That seems to me like a United Airlines screw up. From what I understand, the flight was overbooked, passengers were on the plane somehow, and 4 slots needed to be opened up. Why? I don't know how passengers get on a plane. I'm not a daily traveler, but back in my engineering days, I traveled a lot for my old company. And when they are looking for an overbooked situation, they're usually doing so outside of, or at the gate, outside of the plane, and offering the stipend, the couple $100 or whatever, or a free flight at the gate. So why everyone's on the plane? You've already created an expectation with this man that he's made it onto the plane and he's on his way home, or wherever. Later on he says he's going home, and so you've definitely upped the level of human condition coming into this, because it's the man expects to be kicked off the plane, or at least everybody expects to be kicked off the plane at the gate because something's overbooked, even though I think that's bullshit. But you get kicked off the plane there. Nobody expects to be on the plane, seated, you waited all the time, you got in the line, you're already on the freaking plane. And then they say, oh wait, we made a mistake, we overbooked it. Your problem. No, United Airlines, it's your problem. You offer more money. We just all watched the Wendover Productions video. If you haven't seen it, it's great. Go watch the Wendover Productions video. These airlines make hundreds of thousands of dollars off these flights. So offering $800 to get people off wasn't enough. These people were already on the plane. They've already created the expectation. You've already screwed up. My next question, the people are on the plane. How do you consider this an overbooked situation where the people have to now get off the plane? Like, they got on the plane. If there's 185 seats and they all sat down and there's 4 people who came late, sorry, we're overbooked. At least that makes sense. They're not on the plane. To say that those 4 people get to come on the plane and 4 people have to come off of the plane that's already been seated also sounds wrong. This sounds like a United Airlines screw up. And so their response was to pick random passengers, I guess from coach or from third class or economy class or whatever. I don't know how their classes go, so I'm just speculating there, but to pick 4 random people. I don't know how they chose randomly. They said a computer did it. I have my concerns with random computer stuff because I want to see the code behind it then, but okay, so they picked 4 people. Apparently 3 of them got off. The 4th guy did not.
Pilots drive to Louisville? Can't they rent a car for the pilots and have them drive? No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! No! My guys, my God! What are you doing? No, this is wrong! Oh my God! Look at what you did to him! Oh my God!
So this is what it's become. I mean, instead of having patience and compassion with a person, we just yank them out of a seat into the hard plastic. It looks like his face was crushed by the seat armchair opposite the aisle, on the opposite side of the aisle. And there is a picture of his face afterwards. So I'm not sure if he is completely knocked out or just stunned, but he has not had a good day. There is a video from another perspective.
Hey, come on. Come on. There you go.
Hey,
busted his lip.
Oh my God! Look at what you did to him! Oh my God! Oh my
Good work,
God!
guys. Good work. Way to go.
This is horrible. Oh my God!
Yeah, the police grabbed the guy.
Jesus!
He's an older doctor. He wouldn't get off the plane.
Oh.
And so they forced him off.
So, another perspective, equally horrible. Couple questions. Who's the woman that runs up the aisle? It doesn't look like that's a flight attendant. Person has a purse and seems to be in civilian clothing, so I'm guessing his family. But she seems to push right past the officers like she knows that she's in no danger, so I'm not sure what's going on there. And then to make this tale a little bit more odd, somehow, I mean, this is not a joke, right? This person got back on the plane.
I have to go home. 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 I have to go home.
He appears to have the split lip. I think it's the same gray pants. Let me just check. What's he wearing? Yeah, it's the same gray top, or gray pants and green top. So same person. And then the airline's response. Apparently, anecdotally, someone says that passengers were forced to get off the plane so that he and the plane could be checked for blood and medical and everything. United, this doesn't tell me when this passage happened. United responded This is an upsetting event to all of us here at United. I apologize for having to reaccommodate these passengers. Our team is moving with a sense of urgency to work with authorities and conduct our own detailed review of what happened. We are also reaching out to this passenger to talk to him directly and further address and resolve the situation. Well, Oscar Munoz, CEO of United Airlines, I hope you're reaching out to his attorney, because this man should most definitely have an attorney. But this is also a great opportunity to talk about qualified immunity and whether there's any response or claim or complaint or lawsuit that might be made against the government for having those 3 officers treat him in that fashion. So let me give you a quick breakdown of what I think happened here. The airline has the right to determine who can be a passenger and who cannot. They are more or less a private entity, and although they have some, I think it's called common carrier rights, they are allowed to designate people to be removed from their flights. And so, as I said before, it seems like United Airlines screwed up pretty big time and managed to get more people on the flight than were allowed to be there. So they had to ask for people to voluntarily leave. Not enough people voluntarily left, so they chose people by random, and this man did not want to leave. So at that point, much like former President Bush designated people as enemy combatants, the airline designated him trespassing and asked the either air marshals or law authorities, I didn't see which authority those officers were from, asked them to come and remove him. Now, officers are allowed to use reasonable force. That did not look like reasonable force to me. Reasonable force would have been coaxing him out of the seat, using as little force as necessary as any reasonable person would expect. I don't think that the reasonable person actually expects that you would need to assault a person, hurt them, bloody their lip, or cause physical injury and definitely lasting emotional trauma in order to get someone to leave their seat. Maybe he didn't understand what was going on and was fully invested into going home. I know I have been sometimes, and any person can be pushed to the brink of having a sort of temper tantrum-like reaction. Maybe this was his temper tantrum, and his temper tantrum was he was just going to sit in the seat and force them to remove him with all the force. Maybe he wanted them to remove him with force and wasn't going to leave the seat voluntarily no matter what. Either way, this provokes the question, are you allowed to hurt people who just want to be seated and peaceful? And that's a tough question. This man just wants to use the plane ticket he's paid for, get the product he's paid for, the service he's paid for, get to his destination and go about his life. He's made it to the thing that's going to carry him to his destination. He's got his bags on the plane. Everything is ready to go. You've created a reasonable expectation in him that he's going to get to his destination. So you have to understand that he will be upset. Any person would be upset by being forced, especially if they were going home and wanted to be there. I sometimes just want to be home. I'm an introvert sometimes, and sometimes I really just want to be home. And that does provoke some strong emotional reactions in people, and including this man. So how United Airlines could expect that they were allowed to treat this man this way, I don't understand. Now, the big deal is going to be whether this was United Airlines acting incorrectly. I'm sure this is just standard procedure for them to ask the officers to remove a passenger who doesn't want to voluntarily leave. So, does this mean that we can go after the officers for having hurt the man and acted unreasonably? Possibly. It's going to take overcoming the qualified immunity standard. So I thought that would be a great topic for our video. And I know we're a few minutes into this video, so let's get right to the law part. Here is qualified immunity. So qualified immunity, I'm going to read this from this site. Qualified immunity protects government officials from the liability for civil damages, a civil case, insofar as their conduct does not violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. So we have a couple things in there. The officer has to be using a reasonable person standard to determine what constitutional rights or clearly established procedure is within this conduct. If their conduct goes outside of clearly established policy and procedure, clearly established statutory and constitutional rights, of which a reasonable person would have known, then they are not immune from civil liability. The rule for qualified immunity provides ample support to all but the plainly incompetent, or those who knowingly violate the law. Therefore, regardless of whether the constitutional violation occurred, the officer should prevail if the right asserted by the plaintiff was not clearly established, or the officer could have reasonably believed that his conduct was lawful. Again, if the officer believes his conduct is lawful and that belief is reasonable, that officer will be immune from suit for civil damages. Furthermore, the entitlement of qualified immunity is an immunity from suit rather than just a defense. There is a two-part analysis. Was the law governing the official's conduct clearly established? And under the law, could a reasonable officer have believed his conduct was lawful? Courts apply the test articulated by the Supreme Court to determine whether the right is sufficiently clear that a reasonable official would understand that what he is doing violates that right. Even where a constitutional violation has occurred, an officer will be immune from suit if he or she could reasonably have believed that his particular conduct was lawful. A district court's decision of a claim of qualified immunity is an appealable final decision within the meaning of the law. So, to me, that says that the gentleman will have a little bit of a battle if this officer and United Airlines decide to put up a fight. I'm hoping that they choose not to and realize the error of their ways, but this gentleman, the passenger, is going to have to argue that the officer used an unreasonable amount of force. And the officer is going to argue that he needed to use that amount of force because the passenger was resisting. And it's going to be a he said, she said, hopefully with the assistance of all of these videos. So, how do you feel about that? And what do you think of the officer's qualified immunity? And do you think this is how a situation should be handled when a passenger does not want to leave a seat? To be fair, we don't see what happens directly before these videos. We don't see what happens in between the first videos and the video where the man returns, and we don't know whether the man returning to the flight is him returning to be seated back on the plane. I'm assuming if that's the case, that it's because another passenger saw the whole debacle and thought, hey, maybe I'll give up my seat for that man. Kudos to you, and you're a wonderful person if that's the case. Or do you think it shouldn't have had to come to that? Maybe someone should have been more reasonable in explaining to the man what's going on, or maybe they were. Maybe they were explaining it to him for a very long time, and he insisted on forcing himself to stay in the seat. I mean, you can imagine a person grabbing onto their seatbelt and holding onto their armrests and locking their legs into the seat in front of them. If you did all that, would the officer still be reasonable in yanking you out of the seat with so much force that it breaks the front of your face? At least breaks your lip, maybe a tooth, maybe your nose, knocks your glasses off. Is that reasonable for someone traveling on a plane who got their seat after paying for it, going through security, waiting at the gate check, scanning their ticket at the gate check agent, putting their bag in the overhead compartment, and sitting down and buckling their seatbelt. And then I wanted to ask you another question of whether you thought, no, let's not do that. No, that's just provoking. Do we live in a police state? I mean, is this really what it's come to? Do we really just, you better obey or else we're gonna smack you? Because that's so old school, man. That's just, Anyway, I feel better having explained all of that. I don't feel better about the gentleman who was yanked off the flight. I'm open to modifying or removing this video if it turns out that all of this was completely fake or a hoax or wrong or I've just got the completely wrong perspective. So keep an open mind. These are all speculations and allegations at this point. I'm Leonard French. I'm looking forward to your comments and our discussion about this in the comments below. We also have a Discord server where I pop on as much as I can. We can chat, and there's even a voice chat on there. And that's in the comments below as well, or in the description below. Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, including Joshua Meinsiker and John Cripps, who are currently supporting at the $50 level. And the others are scrolling on my LED panel behind me, although none of this was meant to really... This was less of a monetized video than I want to make original content. I don't want to profit off of people getting yanked off of planes, but you know, I got to support the channel too. I got to eat, I got to pay my bills, and I got to pay my taxes and everything. So I really appreciate all of that, regardless of the disturbing nature of the content that we just saw. So thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to interacting with you. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I'm going to be making more of these videos, and I hope that that we'll all be able to make a great legal community out of this, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and I'm sorry for today's video. Thank you.